Well, greetings everybody. This is Erick Hailstone from Yamaha Worship. It's been a while since I've seen you last time. I know a lot of you know me from the videos we've done in the past and for the 10 years that we traveled around the country doing Christian conferences, helping you to play worship music in a better way and introducing Yamaha products. Since the last time I did a video, I've moved to Portugal, so perhaps I'll send you some pictures from that. It's quite amazing, great experience. Today, our subject is neo-soul music, and specifically neo-soul guitar. This is a form of music that has grown out of modern R&B. You could trace the tracks back to Curtis Mayfield, Cornell Dupree, kind of 60s R&B. And ultimately, I think it all goes back to gospel church. It seems like most of our music culture has come from that and come forward. So neo-soul guitar is distinctive in its use of chords and runs and licks. In the old days, I mentioned Cornell Dupree, they used to call it rhythm lead playing because you'd play a little chord and then you'd play a fill, whether it be something like that or that kind of thing. Right now I want to give a couple of shout outs, so pardon me just for a second while I grab this paper. I would never remember all of this at one time. These are some of the resources that I looked at as I was investigating all this stuff. So there's a great book called the Neo-Soul Guitar Book, and it's published by Fundamental Changes. There is a website called Pickup Music. It's a subscription service for teaching you all kinds of things about guitar, but they've got several really good neo-soul courses there. TrueFire also has several video courses. On YouTube, there is so much there in the neo-soul category. If you look specifically for neo-soul guitar compilations, I think there are 4 of them, and you'll see some of the most amazing players you've ever seen. One of them is Erick Hailstone. I'm borrowing some of this stuff I saw him do for this course. There is a player named Seiji Agusa, and pardon me if I'm pronouncing that wrong, but terrific player, acoustic guitar, electric guitar. He's a great jazz player, a really, really good neo-soul player. Some of you are going to be familiar with some of the stuff that goes on in neo-soul, and others of you will be in new territory. So I'm going to show you all these different elements that I've discovered, and then before we're over, I'll show you how to take a typical worship song that you've played and bring these elements into it. So the first thing I want to talk about is where the chord progressions have come from, or some of the chord progressions that are used quite a bit nowadays. And there are a few songs, there are many, but here's just a few of them. If you look at the song Just the Two of Us, Feel Like Making Love, Sunny, and Earth, Wind, and Fire, Can't Hide Love, a lot of the stuff there is used in neo-soul. So the first 3 of those songs are all minor. Like Sunny, I'm playing an A minor. So it's A minor, down to G minor, C ninth, F major 7, B minor 7, or B minor 7 flat 5, to an E7, sharp 9. You can also go to flat 9. Sometimes people would take this, slide down a half step from A minor 7 to A flat minor 7, getting to the G. Sometimes instead of going to the C9, they might go to F sharp dominant, so. Traveling down to the F. So we'll explain what that's all about a little bit later in the video. Just the Two of Us starts on F. So again, still in the key of A minor, starts on an F major 7 chord, goes to the E7 altered, A minor 7, and you notice I used the passing chord down to G minor 7, C9, F major 7, E7 sharp 9, back to A minor. That's where we started. Let's look at Feel Like Making Love. This is actually a major key of E flat, but it starts on F minor 7. So the walk up, I mean, you could sit on F minor 7, go to B flat 7, go to E flat major 7. Then it drops down to a D flat 9 to C9. You could also walk up, so F minor 7, G minor 7, A flat major 7, B flat 7, E flat major 7. But again, it shares a lot of characteristics with the previous minor tunes as well. The last one I'm going to show you starts off in a major key. This song is called The Way of the World, Earth, Wind, and Fire. So it starts on E major 7, goes to B minor 7, to E 9th, to A major 7, to D, and then it walks up. You can walk up with sus chords, you can walk up with major chords. So we'll be using this later as well. One of the things I want to show you are techniques that are used with chords. So one of the things that I see often is they'll play a chord, instead of playing a whole C chord like this, they'll play a 3-note version of it. So I'm playing C, E, and then B. That's your major 7. And oftentimes they will drop the B down to an A, so now the chord is C6, but then they will hammer up. So this is something I would have you practice, and you could take this and just figure out any pattern, including moving up in half steps chromatically. I prefer to jump around, so maybe go in fourths. You might go C to F, B flat, E flat, and so on. Now you can also do the same thing with a minor chord. So if I'm playing E minor, I can drop from this D down to C. Or with a dominant chord, this is a G, dominant 7, this is the 7, it's F, and I'm going to hammer from E, so from E to F. So I think one helpful bit of information is knowing how harmony works in terms of diatonic scales. This is a C major scale. And if we harmonize from each scale degree, we're going to end up with C major 7, we'll call that the 1 chord, D minor 7, that's the 2 chord, E minor 7, 3, F major 7 is the 4, G dominant 7 is the 5, A minor 7 is the 6, B minor 7 flat 5 is the 7, and finally back to C. So let's take that and we'll go back to our 3-note version. And you want to be moving from one scale degree to the other. So I'm on D minor right now, and I'm moving from B to C. E, moving from C to D, F, D to E, G, E to F, A minor, F to G. Now, this is a B minor, moving from G to A. You can do this on almost any set of strings, any grouping of three. So this same voicing here, I can take it up to the 8th fret and have the root on the low E string. And then the same stuff's going to continue. So I'm going to 2 chord, 3 chord. You can see here I'm going to run out of gas, run out of room. So I would also practice finding transitions from one group of strings to the other. So if we're here, I'm going to play this up to E minor 7. And instead of going to F here, I'm going to switch to the root on the A string. And then I might jump here and put the G on the D string here, the root here. So I would learn them on all of these groupings. It'll allow you to travel around quite a bit. Let's look at another possible technique here. So I'm going to move to this major chord, C major. My first finger is on the 3rd string of the A string, that's the root. My 3rd finger is on the 5th fret of the D string, that's the 5th. My 2nd finger is on the 4th fret of the G string, that's the 7th. My little finger is on the 5th fret of the B string, and that's the 3rd. So I'm going to take my little finger off and hammer from D to E. And at first you would just practice this slowly, just get it under your fingers. And same thing, you might move it around. Try to find some motion that you think is musical. Chromatic works, but I think it's better to put some space in there. All right, now let's do a similar thing, but let's do it on the high E string. So we'll hammer from G to A. Once you get it under your fingers, move it around and slowly increase the speed at what you could do here. Always be aware of how comfortable you are playing these things. I know when I was a young guy, I wanted to move ahead so fast, I wanted to play so fast, and I ended up making a lot of mistakes that I had to go back and re-practice and get rid of. It's always harder to go back and fix things than to do it right in the first place. Let's go back to the chord. We've done this hammer on the B string. Now we've done on the E string. Let's combine them. You can do it a few different ways. I can hit the chord, hammer that, let it sustain, and then play on the E string. Or I can replay the chord Now there's one other one you can do, and that's on the G string. So same thing, and you could do little snippets of the chord, like I'm playing 3 strings right now, or the whole thing. Same procedure, move it around, get it under your belt, then let's try to do all 3. play it all the time with each note, each string. You can do the same thing with the 2 chord, the D minor. So I'm going to hammer on the first string, the E string, from the 5th fret to the 8th fret. That's an A to a C. On the B string, we'll go from the 6th fret to the 8th fret. That's F to G. On the 3rd string, we'll go from the 5th fret, C, to D. And then you can do all 3. And you can do them up or down. So this is adding little runs and fills that you can do with the chord while you're accompanying. One thing, as you do this, you've always got to be listening to the singer. So you might have this incredible little flurry of notes you can play, but if you're interfering with what the singer's doing, it's the last thing you want to do. So we've done this in C, we've done it in D minor. The other thing I would look at is trying different voicings. So let's move up to here. So I'm up on with the root on the 8th fret of the E string. A lot of times I will not play the root, I'll play the chord. And I find I can do this on 4 strings fairly easly. The next technique that I would introduce is taking this idea, we're hammering on, you can also pull it off. And you could do this with the chords that we're using down at the bottom end as well. You can also play triplets. If I come back down here, I just did something unconsciously, and that is, and I notice that I do this, instead of hammering on the 3rd string from B to C, sometimes I'll just slide it. And I think that's a nice technique as well. The next subject we're going to talk about in neo-soul guitar are the chord voicings. A lot of the voicings used in CCI worship music are more triadic based. Sometimes you'll have a chord like this, a C2, or you'll have a chord that has no 3rd in it, so it's a really open sound. Neo-soul, I think, borrows from jazz, so instead of a plain C, they will start adding extensions. So C major 7, C major 9th. In some cases, they might add an 11th to the major 7th and major 9th. I find that works particularly well on the 4 chord. On the C chord, the root, if you add that, it's a little too unsettled, where that is really, really well resolved. If you go to minor chords, I'm playing a D minor here, and I will change it first to D minor 7, and then I'm going to change it to a D minor 9th, and if I add one more note, we have a chord that we call D minor 11. So we have 3 main types of chords here: major, minor, and now dominant. So for our dominant chord, here's a G7. One of the first things you might do is play G7 suspended. So the third moves up to the fourth. Another, I think, really cool thing to do, which leads a chord that it still sounds like fairly relaxed, doesn't need to make a lot of motion just yet. If you play, in this case I'm playing an F chord with a G bass. So that ends up being adding 9 and 11. One of the interesting things about this chord is there's no third. So if I'm playing this and somebody else plays this, G minor 7, it's still going to work. If somebody plays this, G dominant 7th, against that, it still works as well. The next thing we would do with dominant chords are adding extensions. So from here, we'd go to 9, and this is what this voicing looks like. I would learn these on every set of strings you can. So here it is with the root on the A string. Once we have ninths, we can raise them. So that's called a sharp 9, G7 sharp 9, also known as the Hendrix chord. We can flatten it. When I hear this kind of thing, normally it's like one note played after the other, so it's trying to move things somewhere. You can also do it the opposite, or like that. Coming back down to the G7th on the 3rd fret, let's play a 13th. So my little finger is playing E, and that's the 13th. If I lower it, now I have a sharp 5. If I lower it one more time, that's regular 5. And if I lower it one more time, that's called flat 5. So the sharp 9, flat 9, we can do those here as well. This is sharp 9, that's flat 9. You can combine these things. So that's sharp 5 with flat 9. This is sharp 5 with sharp 9. I find it harder to do with the flat 5, but you can do it. All right, so these are all things that will add spice to what you're about to do. Another thing I think it's good to be aware of is the idea of major and minor, relative major, relative minor. So the idea is there's a major chord that's voicing the notes that it has in it, C, G, E, C, E, G, C major chord, A minor. So A minor is A, C, E. So the only notes that's different is the A note. If you move this to there, you're going from A minor to C major. So you can replace these chords with each other oftentimes. If I'm playing I just went from C to F, I could play A minor to F. So that's one possible source for chord substitutions. Another thing we could bring in is a concept called a secondary dominant. So let me give you a chord progression to work with to put this in context. And a lot of worship music is played with the progression 1, 6, 4, 5, or 1, 6, 2, 5. I think somebody told me that there are like 1,500 and something worship songs that use that chord progression. So this is kind of the simplified chord version of it. Let's add some of our extensions. C major 7, A minor 7, F major 7, G13. Now this time around, when I go to A minor, I'm going to change it from A minor to A dominant 7th. And there's a few ways I could do it. I could do it, just go straight there. Instead of going to F, I'm going to go to D minor. G13. Another approach might be C major 7, A minor 7 for 2 beats, A dominant 7 for 2 beats, D minor to G. I'm going to do another substitution. This time, instead of playing C, I'm going to start on E minor. So it'll go like this. And we'll go from E minor to A minor, D minor to G at first, and then we'll try the dominant substitution. So E minor, D minor, G, E minor, A7, D minor, G7. So this time I'll do it again, but I'm going to add in a sharp 5. I might do 13, just some variation. So E minor, A7 sharp 5 to A7, D minor 9, G13, G7 sharp 5. These are all things you can do to the same song, but a couple of things I would take into consideration. One, does it serve the arrangement, serve the tune? Is what the singer's doing works with what you're doing here? If you're in the way of the singer, you can't do it. The other thing is, if you're the guitar player in a worship band and you have somebody, a music director, who's putting together all the arrangements and you just randomly start playing this stuff, that is not a good thing. If you want to go and talk to your music director, maybe you'll come together with an arrangement that uses this stuff. If you are the music director, you pretty much can do whatever you want. Well, congratulations, you've made it all the way through Neo Soul Part 1. Come back for Part 2. We're going to show you how to create triads all over the neck and how to use them in really interesting harmonic manners. We'll also take a classic worship tune and take all the skills you've learned for Neo Soul and create an arrangement in that fashion. See you next time.